and welcome to another weekly update. Okay, so apologies first of all for not doing a weekly update last week. Holiday season is here. I'm also not going to be doing one next week or the week after, so there's going to be a 2-week break now. Partly that's personal family holiday time, but also it represents a kind of a slowdown in Microsoft news anyway. Coming back after that, going into August, I will still do weekly updates, but you can expect them to be slightly more wider ranging in nature. Because, like I say, the pace of delivery at Microsoft particularly does really slow down over that kind of July-August timeframe. All right. So this week, and in fact covering, I guess, the last 2 weeks, there's really only two things I want to talk about, which is you might think, oh, there's hardly any news happening. And that's kind of true, but it worked out quite well, in fact, because I want to spend a lot of time on this first thing. This is going to be a blog post I'm going to write up today. You are getting my thoughts as I'm kind of preparing to write this blog post. So sort of thanks for helping me kind of work this out in my head. So big news for Microsoft Teams extensibility. Connectors. So this is not graph connectors. This is the connectors inside Microsoft Teams. What Microsoft call Office 365 connectors. But if you go into Teams connectors, you'll be aware that connectors were a day one extensibility feature. They are going away. They are being retired, and they are being retired very, very quickly. You do not have long to respond to this. So there's a couple of things. So first of all, these were, like I say, a day one extensibility feature for Microsoft Teams. They were really kind of put in, it felt like, to help sort of build up the adoption of the platform. When Microsoft Teams first came out, Microsoft obviously had a job to get everybody using Teams, and one of the ways they did that was by pitching it as the operating system for work. And really this is building on Microsoft's continued efforts to have a kind of single place for users to go to where they're not constantly swapping screens or applications just to get their work done. So everything kind of happens in one place. And Teams was the most complete manifestation of that to date, where information from other systems came into different channels, and you've got the chats obviously as well. But really users could stay in one place, and information from other systems would come into Teams and would come in via connectors was one of the big ways that happened. And then obviously you have the other extensibility models as well with things like tabs, where users could go and find information from other systems presented to them. And then also bots as well, where they could interact with those other systems. Again, all ways of kind of keeping users inside Teams and what Microsoft would say in the flow of work. So losing one of those fundamental extensibility points is a big deal. Connectors have been around a long time. They have been used to kind of stitch together, I suppose, any number of extensibility options, because not only have you got the official, if you like, supported connectors for big names, things like Trello, Azure DevOps, Atlassian, other things as well. I'm sort of particularly picking on the dev stuff because that's what I know. But there are, lots and lots of connectors for Microsoft Teams. Not only that, but you also had the incoming webhook connector, which was a great way for developers everywhere to quickly, get information into Microsoft Teams. So the fact that this is going away, including things like news, RSS, I've forgotten that until let me show you the screenshot of the blog post, because this is a really interesting blog post because it starts off telling you what Office connectors are. I've never really heard them called Office connectors, by the way. I've always heard them called just connectors in Microsoft Teams. Delivering content and services, here we go. DevOps services, Trello, Wunderlist, GitHub. A lot of these are Microsoft first-party systems as well, by the way. So the integration points have been these connectors. Office connectors post these updates directly into the chat. This functionality makes it easy for all team members to stay in sync and informed on relevant information. This sounds like a good thing, doesn't it? It's so funny to see that posted at the top of a, hey, by the way, we're making this go away, blog post, which is kind of interesting. So this is going to be starting effective 15th of August this year, and that will impact new connectors being created. And then by October this year, October the 1st, all connectors within all clouds will stop working. So if you just count July and August for a moment as it's holiday season. You've got September basically to get all your connectors moved onto something else. The something else could be Power Automate. It could be Power Automate Workflows, that's the kind of official solution. Now, there's a number of problems with that. Firstly, you need a different license to use Power Automate. That's not covered by your Teams license. So you will need an additional license to use this stuff. So effectively, what's happening here in this transition process is that these connectors are moving from free to paid. There are more of them. There's a deeper catalog for the Power Automate stuff. It doesn't work in the same way. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. The other thing is that this is not a kind of managed transition. Microsoft are not moving over any of your connectors to Power Automate for you. Nothing like that is happening. You have to do that work yourself. There've been varying reports so far as to how successful that is going. I think it very much depends on your workload, on what it is you currently have connectors doing. And so, yeah, that's very much a your mileage will vary scenario. Yeah, so why is this happening? Why are Microsoft doing this is the big kind of question that I wanted to put in my blog post as well. And it's a kind of an interesting one. By the way, this blog post is worth a read, the one that I'm sharing. I'll put it in the notes. It's worth you hearing directly from Microsoft about what's happening here. That's valuable. And also it's worth it for the comments as well. There's a ton of comments. And they are, I think, mostly negative, if I'm honest. There is a fairly poor reaction to this, particularly around the timelines and the lack of advance notice, which I think is a fair criticism. Okay, so the why. Why doing this? There is a section in the blog post that says why. It doesn't actually tell you why. So other than there's a couple of different reasons. So I think you could look at the business side of things. Teams is no longer the wonder child and of Microsoft at the moment. It's no longer the poster child. And so for that reason, it has to earn its keep. And that means increasing revenue per user. This is one way of doing that. Strip out the extraneous services that are costing money. And there is a part of that, I think. They don't need to try so hard as well to win people onto Teams. I feel like they've probably won that argument in the enterprise. So there's that as well. There's a sentence in here, though, that makes me wonder if this is aligned to security. They do say these changes are aligned to the Microsoft Secure Future Initiative and our company-wide priority to safeguard our customers from cyber threats. So there may be a bunch of stuff we don't know about the insecurity of connectors. However, that means Microsoft have chosen to turn this off rather than fix it, which is a choice in itself they could have made. So there's a lot of things we don't know other than if you're using connectors, and you probably are. I don't know, if I'm honest, there's a good way of telling if you are using connectors. I'm going to look at it, obviously, in the next couple of days. If there's a way of doing it in PowerShell or in code, I will be the first to blog it for you, unless someone else beats me to it, obviously. But yeah, I'd like to help you if I can identify if you've got connectors running in your org, because this will be impacting. So big one there. I spent 8 minutes talking about that, which is it's a good job there weren't loads of other things to talk about. I do quickly just want to talk about an interesting use for Copilot, GitHub Copilot, which has come out in a new blog post, which is demystifying history. And I put this in because I absolutely love the idea of this. I spend more time than I should looking at different histories, trying to work out what changed and why. Having something like Copilot that can do a lot of that hard work for me and just pull out the difference between two commits and help me understand what's changed and try and give a hint as to why, I think that's an awesome idea. So I'm really pleased to see that coming to GitHub Copilot as well. Wanted to end on a little bit of a high, but the main news is, really that news about the connectors. So definite call to action there. I'll put a blog post out today, and I'm going to try and follow up with concrete things you can do to identify connector use in your org. All right, I hope it's been useful. Whatever it is you're doing this week, apart from looking out and transitioning connectors, have a great time, and I'll speak to you in 3 weeks' time, not next week or the week after. Thanks very much.